Your branding is not necessarily going to break your product. Like, it's not going to break your company. It may make your company if it's good enough and if we connect in the right way with the right people. But we always tell our clients, like, if your product is good, people will buy it no matter what the work that we're doing is.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and you're listening and watching the Rhymes with Odd podcast. Today we have another amazing guest all the way from Grimes, Iowa, 10 minutes away. We got Adam Feller in the house. Adam, what's up, man?
Not a whole lot. I'm thankful to be on the show, and I'm excited for having a chat with you too. So
absolutely.
Yeah, and the flight in was a little bumpy.
Sure.
It's snowing today, so
yeah,
no flight.
Drive a little like 20 miles an hour. So Adam is the owner / creative director of Avidity. Is it Avidity Creative or just Avidity?
Well, technically it's Avidity Creative, but I go by Avidity most of the time.
Okay.
I'm trying to drop the creative off it, but our website URL still says creative. So
Sure. Yeah. So it's a like logo design, branding shop, I would say. We'll talk all things branding today. But I think your journey is going to be unique because there's been other guests on the show that you work with and have connections with and that you know of. So this will be kind of fun. We can bounce ideas, but really the outcome of this, I think, is really to hear your story. And then also if people are listening and they own a business and they're curious of other ways they can improve their branding, we can talk about some of those things. So really excited to jump in today.
Yeah, I'm anxious. Where would you like to start?
Well, let's start from the beginning, I suppose. We can kind of, before we get into that though, just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do currently, like 2 to 5 minute kind of summary, and then we can go back in your backstory. So who are you and what do you do? Yeah,
so like Ryan said, my name is Adam Feller, owner of Avidity Creative. Avidity is a branding and design agency for emerging CPG food and beverage brands. That's what we tell all of our clients. The things that we do is brand strategy. We mentioned logo design. We do a lot of logos and packaging. That's a lot of like our most frequent type projects because we're working with smaller brands. But we also do everything from content creation for lifestyle photography. We do short little videos sometimes too for reels, but Shopify websites. We do in-store marketing. So for anyone who's listening, you go to your grocery store and all the things that are annoying you that are sticking off of the shelves, those are called shelf talkers, and they make us a little bit of money. So, but we design stuff like that. We design in-store marketing. We do trade show booths for clients. So everything that we do is focused around CPG, which for people who don't know, that's consumer packaged goods.
Sure.
So anything that's in your grocery store, we'll design stuff like that.
I love it. And I've just in the last couple of years, I've realized like how highly competitive CPG is and how really important the work you do is, because if you have a really stale, disgusting looking logo, no one's going to buy your product, and then the store won't list it. They won't show it. And that's the only way that someone can sell salt or powdered sugar or cereal when there's 75 other options on the shelf. Your packaging is the one thing that will grab someone's attention. For sure.
So what we tell a lot of our clients is that your branding is not necessarily going to break your product. Like, it's not going to break your company. It may make your company if it's good enough and if we connect in the right way with the right people. But we always tell our clients, like, if your product is good, people will buy it no matter what the work that we're doing is. Your job as a marketing or advertising company, or even the founder, is to get your product in front of people. And we have ways that we can get into this later if you want to, but that we advise our clients how to actually get their products in front of people and getting customers to try their products for the first time. But our job is for those people who don't get to taste test their products, because when you go into a grocery store, the hardest thing to decide when you want to try something new is like, I don't want to buy a whole box of these cookies to find out that at the first try that I don't like it. So our job as a branding company is to make sure that we're putting the right message out there, make sure that the packaging itself is appealing enough to get the customer to pick it up and at least give it a try the first time.
Sure. No,
after that, it's up to the product itself to be good and get them to come back a second time.
Sure. No, I love that. And we can talk about more current day stuff, but I think it gives people a good understanding of like what you guys do now, because it's so specialized, which I think is great to really go deep and understand, like, we do this a lot. So now we can help you with like, hey, this, that, and the other thing. So that helps a lot. Jumping back in your backstory, I think it'd be interesting to hear kind of like where you grew up, where you're from, and kind of how you got to where you are today.
For sure. So I was born and raised in Denison, Iowa, kind of up northwest part of Iowa. I went to college at Buena Vista University in Storm Lake, played soccer there. And then I studied graphic design there as well. And I'm probably one of the very few people who not only stuck with my major all 4 years throughout college, but then also got a job in my field, not right away. It was about a month after graduating, I think, but then I have stayed in my field the entire time. and I think I'm actually probably one of the few people who's doing what I wanted to do. So, interesting story, I suppose. When I was in college, talking to my professor, who was my advisor, I suppose, asking me what I wanted to do after graduation. I think this is my senior year, and I told her, if I could if every day I could design logos and packaging, I would be happy. And then come to find out, what is it? 7 years later after that, I'm much more than 7 years out of college, but about 7 years after college, that's exactly what I was doing. And I don't think many people get the opportunity or have that goal in mind, and that goal never changes for them. I would think I'm probably one of the few people who has that. So anyways, after college, my first job out of college was as a graphic designer at the Omaha Zoo, which was kind of fun. It was interesting to have lunch with different animals every day if I wanted to, and only some of them were coworkers. So
sure. But I have a little soundboard, but we don't use that. So put the little snare drop on there.
So it was interesting, but it was also surprisingly a very corporate job. So when I had, I started to do freelance stuff. I think my ultimate goal, like I said, I wanted to design logos and packaging, but my sort of career goal, as in, what did I want to be title wise? From the start, is I wanted to be a creative director at an ad agency of some kind, or just being in the agency world. And for me, there's two ways of doing that. It's either getting into an ad agency, working your way up, or skip straight to the front and have your own company and become the creative director, make yourself the creative director.
Sure. You can give yourself any title you want when you start your own company.
Exactly.
Head janitor.
So I started doing just a little bit of freelancing even while I was working at the zoo. But as far as like full-time jobs, so worked at the zoo for about a year. Then I moved to Des Moines and worked for a social media startup company. And that was in 2012 when everyone was starting social media startup companies. Sure. I was there for about a year and wasn't enjoying it. It was just such a complete opposite from the corporate world of the zoo, just being large, to a startup that had 8 people. I didn't really love that life so much. Working for someone else's startup, I still had my own ideas in the back of my mind too. But about another year later, then I went to the Business Record here in Des Moines, and worked there for 2.5 years. I was doing editorial work, doing advertisements.
Were you still designing, or were you doing copywriting?
Okay. Yep. No, I was designing. So all along the way, I've been a designer. It was just interesting. As each job, I gained a new skill or like a new area of design, or I learned something new still within the creative side of things. I never got into video, never got into audio or writing. Like that has never been my interest. So after the Business Record, I went to Lessing Flynn Advertising, and worked there. So they're an established full service ad agency.
You made it to the agency world.
I did.
It took you a little
bit. Exactly, and that was what was interesting to me too. It was like, all right, it almost felt like I'd finally made it, even though I was still only a graphic designer. I wasn't like art director, or, associate creative director or anything like that yet. But it was still only 5 years after graduating college. So I made it. It finally got to that point, and all along the way, still building up the freelance stuff on the side, just doing logo projects, business cards, small things, and eventually the clients started getting a little bit bigger, and the time that I had at night to do it, I was getting full of that time. So working throughout the agency as well too, I got to a point where on the side and doing freelance stuff, I was making as much or more than I was at my full-time job at the agency. And I wasn't being underpaid or anything. It was just I was doing really well freelance-wise. Didn't have any kids yet, and basically had a decision to make. Like I had a client who was like, they asked me like, well, what do you want to do? And this was a client like I'm very thankful to have met them as well too, but they were my biggest client at the time. They're like, well, do you want to do this on your own? Like what's kind of holding you back? Because they saw that like they saw it just from mentioning stuff in meetings that like, oh, it seems like Adam like wants to go out on his own. Like what's stopping it? For me, it was like just having the financial security. Basically, they had made an offer to invest in me in the company. I'm like, okay, that's great. Like this sounds awesome. It seems like I can finally take this chance of starting my own company. And we were just basically working through what the numbers would be like, and the numbers that they were willing to invest.
Were they wanting to come in as like a minority partner in the company? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And then because I just came from an event where I was doing a lot of this stuff, what was kind of the funding going to be used for? Was it just to have like padding for expenses? Was it to invest in new equipment? Like, what was kind of the reason for the funding?
This is a terrible answer, but I don't know. At the time, I had no idea. It was mostly just a reassurance. It was probably going to be for my salary. It maybe would have been for some equipment, like a nicer, newer computer, bigger desktop computer, because I was working, I think, from a laptop at the time. So it may have been something like that. I wasn't going to get office space. Our company is still remote. Like, we all work from home. So I don't even know if I really had a plan for what it was. It was mostly just knowing that if every client of mine left me day one that I got on my own, that there was some reassurance that I was still going to be okay. Like, our family was going to be okay financially.
Sure.
But throughout the talks with them, basically, I was saving up enough and matched what they were going to invest. I'm like, you know what, guys, I appreciate the gesture and your helpfulness. And basically, you're just kicking me off the ledge here, but I'm going to do this on my own. So since day one, it was just basically I had saved up enough to make. It was equal to 10 months of whatever my salary was going to be at my full-time job. So it basically told me, again, if clients left me day one, I couldn't find a new, everyone hated me all of a sudden and my work was just terrible. I had roughly 10 months to find a job.
Sure. Which is plenty of time, right?
Exactly. Especially like being younger at the time, that it was going to be easier. So
sure.
Anyway, so that
well, you keep saying you're old. How old are you? You keep saying you're old. What's old?
I'm 35.
Okay, you're not that old. I'm 20. I'm 29. I turned 30 this year. So.
Yeah, well, you'll feel it then in a few years.
Yeah, everything's starting to hurt a little bit more when I wake up in the morning. So I understand that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we do CrossFit, and the first rule of CrossFit is you have to talk about CrossFit.
Got to. Yep. It's like Fight Club.
Yeah. So now I'm considered. So I'm in the older age group. So what's like a
Are you the masters category?
Exactly.
You are not that. That's like 40, isn't it?
No, it's 35 to 30. So it starts at 35. It's like 35,
geez.
39, then there's 40 to
Pretty
whatever.
soon you're going to be going to McDonald's like, can I get a senior coffee?
I know. I might as well just give up right now. Yeah.
Sir, you're not 70 years old. You're like, I feel like it sometimes.
Yeah. Every time I wake up and everything cracks when I get out of bed.
Sure. Well, and I think just that story is interesting because as you're going to like take the leap, I had a very, very similar situation with mine. I worked for a production company. I was making double my salary and I still didn't want to jump because I was too afraid. And it was like, of what, And the big thing, and I've said this story before, but like my wife was like, what's the worst that would happen? And I'd said, all my clients leave. I don't get any more work, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, then what would you do? It's like, well, just go get another job. It's like, well, is that so bad? You'd be right where you are now. It's like, oh, well, okay.
Right.
Now things are like, I would never go back now, but it's like, you just need that little push. So it's nice that your client was like,
yeah,
nicely, I love you, but boom, we're going to push you off the ledge and make you jump. So,
and honestly, like that was probably one of the first signs of like what was to come for like my future personally, and for Avidity and what we work with our clients. Like, we get very close with our clients. At least I try to. Like, I try to make a personal connection with them right away. So allowing them to be able to talk to me in that way, because not many of the clients are going to feel comfortable saying, like, hey, dude, like you should quit your job and go do this full time, because a lot of them just don't care. Like, you do the work for me, I pay you to do the work for me. That's
very
all I care about.
transactional and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I would say we build a relationship. Or at least I try to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so when did you leave, and then how long have you been in business full time?
So, 2017 is when I officially went full time on my own. So I left the agency and went and did my own thing. So it was just me for 2 years, I think. Slowly growing. Basically, I knew once I went out on my own, like I couldn't just be like every other freelance designer, or there's a lot of agencies here in Des Moines, small companies especially, that do design, and I knew I needed to like find a niche on something, and I just was like looking at the clients that I've worked with, what was most enjoyable, what was actually profitable. I was able to narrow it down to a few things, and ultimately chose that the food and beverage industry is what I enjoyed, and there was maybe some way to build a business around the money that we were making from that.
Was there a certain draw to it besides just the picking a niche, or was there like the few projects you'd done and you loved doing that and you wanted more of it? Or is it because a lot of these companies have new SKUs that need new designs and there's recurring revenue there? There's
a bit of both. So maybe I can just kind of share like how I made that decision, because I do get asked that a lot too. So when I narrowed it down to what I was going to create a niche in, it's like, what did I know about? What's my background, or what's my knowledge in? I looked at clients that we had worked with, and I was able to narrow it down to events, food and beverage, and then like industrial and construction clients. In events, everything was pro bono. I was doing it for free or in like sponsorship exchange. Like you can't make money off of that. Not saying that people can't, and there's agencies that do it, but like what I was doing wasn't gonna be able to make money.
But if 80% of your work is pro bono,
exactly,
you're not gonna make any money.
Exactly.
You're a nonprofit then.
Exactly. So the construction and industrial clients, like there's lots of money there. Those companies are big, and even around Des Moines, like there's enough that I would probably be able to have some connections. If we got out of Des Moines, like it would be easy to make a niche out of. But as a creative person, it was very boring. They're all the same. And like you can say like you can look at the different construction industrial clients that are around here. And
most of them are 100+ years old. They've
exactly.
never changed the logo before. And it's the same.
The market's very conservative. So like coming up with something, just getting them to be open-minded to different things, like it was going to be hard. So right in the middle there, the sweet spot, the Goldilocks, was food and beverage stuff. I actually thought when I started it was going to be more like restaurant type clients. And then I quickly realized that that was even harder to find. Like I never knew who was going to start a new restaurant. It was hard to get in front of that person. They never had any budget to work with. And they were also getting hit up by marketing companies every single day for different stuff. So it was too much of a fight. So I quickly realized actually that packaged food and beverage products was kind of a mix of both. Like there's ways for me to get in front of the people who are going to start. There's ways for me to build, I think you do courses and stuff. So like, I can do certain stuff like that as well too. And be like a consulting type with them. But then, like you mentioned, there's always new SKUs. Like if the clients get big enough, they're starting new product lines, and there's always things we can do. So it was enjoyable, and I've once we started doing that was probably pretty quickly right after starting. So I would say it was like early 2018 that I started focusing on that, and then it was just a matter of like teaching myself, like the things that I don't know. Like I never grew up working in retail. I never worked at Hy-Vee or anything. I didn't know the back end of like how you actually start a product that's food and beverage and like get it into packaging or get it to distributors or manufacturing, all that stuff. So just a matter of understanding that, and then understanding how to sell and like what actually makes things pop off the shelf.
Sure.
And we built around that.
Well, and as you're starting to like launch in that space, were there certain types of people you were targeting with your messaging, or did you already have like a client list that started kind of referring you more? Because I'm assuming there's a small amount of people that make those decisions, right? It's it's finding the right person to talk to. Who are those people for you early on?
Yeah. So, I mean, we did get a little bit of word of mouth to start. We got in with a couple local coffee companies. Ross Street Roasting was our first, and they're in Tama, Iowa. If you're familiar with them or with the city.
Are they near Iowa City, right?
It's about halfway between Des Moines and Iowa City, a little bit to the north, kind of more like Ames to Iowa City.
Sure.
So,
I'm thinking of Tiffin. Sorry.
That's right.
All these towns are melting together in my head.
That's right. So they were our first, and they kind of, just from like other people seeing their stuff, we end up getting connected with who are the company that's now Black and Bold Coffee, and that one probably sounds a lot more familiar to people. It's quite large. They're in almost every retailer around the country. They've been featured by Target in their own commercials, which I can come back to that here in a little while too, because there's some interesting stuff with their story. But just from that, we had lots of referrals, and then I was focusing like some actual outreach, trying to connect with people on LinkedIn, Facebook. Instagram wasn't really popular at the time, so there wasn't a whole lot of that. But I was connecting with either the marketing manager. A lot of times, if I can actually get connected with the founder of the company or the owner of the company, then it was easier to speak to, because they're usually the ultimate decision maker. But the clients that we were working with, especially at the time, were still small enough that they didn't have a whole marketing team. It was one person maybe, or it was the founder, and that's who we wanted to talk to. So it was just a matter of how do I figure out who that person is and contact them. LinkedIn makes it a lot easier because you can search by job titles, you can search by topic. So it was like looking up founder and snacks or something, and just starting to follow and connect with those people, and then starting a conversation.
Sure. Well, and as you're starting that process too, like you mentioned, there's all these repeat SKUs. So in your business model, it's unique because you could have like 10 really good clients that have new products every year, and you're full. You're busy the whole year. Where other designers, if you're just doing like logos for new businesses, it's like, okay, you go and find a business, you do their logo, and then they don't need anything from you anymore. It's like, okay, now what? Like you're constantly in this rabbit hole of like, I need more work. Where at least with yours, it's like you can do a little repeat, but also like you can welcome new people too. So I think it's a really good mix of a niche because a lot of people don't. It's either one or the other, right? You're either I'm in-house for a company and just do you lose your creativity, but now you can kind of dance the line of that and kind of have a little bit of both,
For sure. Yeah. So I would say our mix of clients is probably about 10% of repeating business. We have a lot of new clients because of the nature of what we do with branding. It's a lot of one-off, even though the client the projects can get bigger and bigger. We're doing a list of deliverables that's like your logo packaging, in-store marketing, Shopify website, whatever. Like the list can get longer and longer, but all those things I just listed are still one-time things. We can do different marketing campaigns, and that's some repeating stuff that comes back to us frequently. People are always doing different stuff with their websites, so there's website graphic support that we can do, or we've gotten into recently. I don't know if we're not really SEO, but just some digital marketing surrounding your website. I wouldn't say that's what we're building our company upon, but that's kind of like an added value service that we do.
Sure.
Gosh, I feel like I lost my train of thought a bit.
You're right. I think it'd be fun to kind of talk a little bit about, we talked off camera earlier, about building a team, like the hiring process, because you're not just by yourself anymore. You've got some people to help you. So give us kind of an overview of like what's the team look like now and how many people are helping and what's the roles that you have.
Yeah. So right now the team there's 4 of us, including myself. I have another full-time art director so that I can start getting less hands-on myself with the actual design so I can focus on actually growing the business. Then I have another part-time designer for now who hopefully we'll make that position full-time here in the next few months. And then we have a part-time account coordinator / project manager type role. And that position as well, I expect by the end of this year to be full-time and maybe even have another one. So as far as that process went, I am, as you can tell from my story of like making the jump to just starting the company, I'm a very low risk taker.
Sure. Slow, methodical,
exactly.
Make the right moves. Yeah.
And it's hard for me to make the decision to do something big, like making a hire. So the way I went around it when I started getting busy was like I started with an intern. I made it a paid intern position, but just to see like how do I build my process around someone else that's not just me now, and having them help. Like what do they do? So I went through a couple of interns. The next step was a part-time role. It's pretty easy for me to know like, all right, we have this amount of money in the bank account that we make a 6-month contract, and no matter what happens, we're not going to run out of money because I know in 6 months I can cover whatever this person's salary would be. So a 6-month part-time contract. Then turn that, after that 6 months, we were still busy and drowning in work, and the money was still coming in. Then it was turning that role into a full-time. And then, so we did that actually last April. The part-time guy is now full-time. And that was big for me because that meant I changed my company from an LLC to an S Corp, and I now made myself an actual employee of the company. So then I learned everything about salary taxes and how much they suck and everything else that comes around with that. And then just being an employer, like, what does it mean? Like, we're small enough, like, I don't have a benefits package of insurances, of 401k. Like, we can't afford that yet. Someday we will. As soon as we can, then we'll do stuff like that. But like, how can I make up for that? How can I build? What are the things I can offer? So we do it on unlimited PTO, and basically, like, as long as you're getting work done, like, you come and go as you please. And right, because we work remotely, it almost makes it. We have to be very trusting with each other and still hold each other accountable, of course. And like, here's what we need to get done this week. And as long as you're doing that, like, whatever, go. My employee, the full-time guy last week was his wife's birthday, and he's like, I'm going to take a day off for her and just kind of focus on her. I'm like, yeah, great. You got through the things you needed to get done. Then cool. Go ahead, go every time. I went on vacation.
Congratulations.
I know. Exactly. 2 weeks ago now. And, that's hard to do because, like, as an entrepreneur, like, we never turn off, and you're probably the same way. Like there is no. People say like, oh, I want to quit the 9 to 5 and go work for myself. Well, you quit the 9 to 5, and now you went from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. because you're always on. There is no turning it off.
Yeah. Last night I was telling you I woke up at 4:30. I could not sleep, and I was like, just got my laptop, just working, and then I left my freaking charger here. So I worked until the computer died, and I'm like, I should probably go to sleep again because I just couldn't get like. once I go down that road, you can't come back for me. I'm like, oh, I should do all that. And like just all these thoughts like make my brain light up. I'm like, God dang it. Now I can't sleep,
And you probably get the same thing as I do as an entrepreneur. You feel like if you're not working and you're not being productive, then it's like you're wasting your time. And so if I'm not actually working on the business, I'm educating myself. Let's see, it's like everything that I do, like I don't read fiction books. So when I went on vacation, the books that I brought with me were either business books or graphic design books. Just more branding books. That's actually what I had because I'm getting less into design. I'm focusing more on the strategy of branding. So entrepreneur books, like that's all I read. But yeah, just the way that things changed is as far as like what your focus is. So getting back to an employer and what that process was like. So what we were offering, like I said, unlimited PTO. There's not a whole lot else. Like I give bonuses, all those sorts of things, whatever we can do, but like building that package. So there's still a lot for me to learn, I suppose, when it comes to being an employer, but like, how do I lead a team? I've never been in a role where I've had to lead, anyone besides myself or one other person maybe. So now I've got, 3 other people that I'm leading this team, and like, how can I get us all on the same page, go in the same direction?
Sure. Well, and I think just, again, building out those standard operating procedures, the systems, the software stack, whatever it does to like offload that. So then project comes in, it's not like a question of like how this gets to it's very templatized, and you can like still have your creativeness, but also like we know things get to the finish line. Cause I know when I worked in agency world, that was really hard because we had like creatives that just want to go and do their thing. And then you have like project managers that are like, no, like reel them back in and try to just like keep the train on the tracks.
Yeah.
Is that kind of a thing that you've had to build into your systems now?
It definitely is. Yeah. Yeah. We've built our process. So the project management, we use ClickUp. That's how we keep all of our projects on track for everything. Because, when it was just me and one other person, especially when it was just me, when it was me and one other person, I was just doing things through email. And I'm like, okay, I am the project manager. I will tell you updates from the client on what they need us to do to revise this project. And you get back to me and I send it to the client. And now we have 40 or 50 projects going on at one time. I can't do that anymore. Sure. No one can. So having just a project management system like helped just for that. But understanding also what is our process and how do we systemize it in a way that it's repeatable, so that every new client that comes to us, and the reason that we niche down is like when I can get into our sales process too, because it's almost like a script word for word that I tell potential clients every time, and it's been working. But I know exactly what questions they're going to ask and stuff too. But at least talking about our process, at least the process is the same no matter who the client is. So from start to finish, like everything that we're doing, it's the same. So that has helped as well too. And I think that's kind of what you were asking.
Sure. Well, and I know like for me, I have a CRM that I use to manage everything, where as I kind of build my team out in the next year, I want to try to have that where once I close a project, they do a kickoff meeting, like the whole team's on that kickoff, and then I can hand it off to the team to like fulfill on what they need. So then it's not a matter of like, well, they weren't in the kickoff meetings, so they don't know like what the vision of this is. It's like the constant like over communication thing. So I think that's a good piece to know. It was like having the whole system down is super, super important.
Yeah, and then at least the client knows what to expect as well too. Because like we close a client, we get the contract signed. They know day one that we're going to do a discovery call, and then they know the next steps from there. And I also reiterate it in those meetings too, so that they know what to expect, and then we live up to those expectations each time. So it obviously makes for a good client relationship as well too.
Sure. On the note of like diversifying clients and stuff like that, do you guys typically work on project based? Do you have like retainers that you work with regularly? Like what's kind of your mix of clientele?
Yeah. So we don't do retainers. Never been a big believer in retainers, at least for what we do, like branding and design. It's so fluid, and the type of design work that we do anyways. But if someone's just designing emails every month, like you have a set list of here's what you have to deliver, and here's the time that it takes, and here's what it's going to cost. So, but we haven't done retainers. So what we do is basically a project-based pricing. Some people might call it value-based pricing or value pricing. It's kind of along those lines.
Which is kind of like a hot topic right now, at least in my niche. I'll talk about value-based pricing in my YouTube videos and courses and stuff, and people berate me like, that's not a real way to do it. You're just making numbers up. I'm like, you just got to go deeper, right? You got to you could charge X amount per hour, but that for a nonprofit in Des Moines versus Mountain Dew or Red Bull or
Exactly.
Coca-Cola, like
Exactly.
they'll pay more because it's worth more to them because it's
Yeah.
going to make a bigger impact and make them more money.
Yeah.
So
another buzzword that's at least hitting our industry too, the creative industry, or at least for designers, is productizing your service. So I don't know if you call it like service as a product, whatever. But so we're kind of a mix of all of that. So at least when it comes to pricing, it depends on the situation. But like value-based pricing, we may raise the price or may for a client that's bigger and we know that it's worth more to them. Hence, we put more focus and energy maybe on it. It's hard to say because like we kind of approach all of our clients about the same. I don't want to make it seem like we're unfair to different clients, but so there's a little bit of that, the value based. But then it's just as far as like because we work with a lot of the same types of people, having the same fee structure and the same pricing for a similar set of deliverables basically is productizing what we're doing. So we have a package that I know that when a coffee company comes to us that's just starting out, they're going to need a logo, they're going to need packaging, they're going to need likely a Shopify website. There's a few other add-ons that we can do for them as they're starting up, depending on what their budget is. But usually it's going to be the same price for all of them. And so in a way, that's kind of productizing what we have.
Sure.
Interestingly enough, I have never been a big believer in hourly pricing for a couple reasons. Mainly, I hate tracking my own time, and just from working at the ad agency that I was at,
because all they care about is billable hours.
Exactly.
Are you getting your billables done?
Exactly. We had to have a certain percentage that we were trying to meet. And like, okay, so it means I'm going to BS some of my hours here.
Oh, big time.
Especially
if you're good. If you're good and efficient, you'll get that stuff done in 2 hours. You'll log it for 8 because you're like, well, that'll make the agency happy. Now I can dink around on YouTube for 6 hours and get paid for it. So
exactly. So it's punishing people for being better or faster at their job. So there's no incentive to go faster. So I've always like told all of our clients too, like we give you a price up front for what we're going to do. Ultimately I base it a little bit on timing because I understand how long it takes certain things to do. But when it comes to the client, like all they care about is one number. They don't want to end up with an estimate where I don't know the last time anyone's ever given you an estimate for something and and they bill you for less than that. It's always that number or higher.
Sure. It'll be 10,000 and then you're like, well, we got it done in a day. It's 1,000. We're like, yeah, exactly. Thank you. Like we agreed to give you 10 times that, stupid.
yeah, never gonna happen. So at least that they understand that whatever price we give them up front, that's what they have to account for. And for us, in the long term, things don't even out. We go faster on some projects, we go slower on some projects. But it means that our ultimate goal then is like we're coming up with the best and most creative idea that we can for that client and whatever we think is going to work best for them. And we're not going to be constrained by like, oh, we got to hurry up and get this done so that it's actually profitable. No, or, like feeling like because we took too long on something that we were not going to make money on it now. So in the end, like the long term, all those things kind of line up. So, however, talking about billing hourly, the only time that we do is for production work. So like after we've gone through a list of deliverables with a client, and they want to come back they need a new label for these 5 new coffees they're adding. And we just want to track time for that. It's not really worth it for the client for us to go, okay, here's a quote. I need you to accept the quote, sign the contract, and then we do the project again. Like that process can take a week when they could just say like, okay, we know about how much you're going to charge. Just go ahead and do it. And usually by then the clients are comfortable with enough with us that we just do those things. But that's just production stuff.
Sure. No, and I completely understand that. I had one of my clients recently that I thought we were on that kind of relationship where I'd done a couple projects and then they said, hey, do this for me. So I just did it and then invoiced them for the time. And they're like, I didn't approve for this. They refused to pay it. And I was like, I don't work. This isn't a free thing. Like this is outside of the scope of what we did. So I think some of it just like clarifying, here's how this works, making sure they really understand it.
Yeah.
Where if we're in the middle of a project and you have a change order, sometimes we have to say, okay, this is a change order. This is going to cost this much, but we'll get it done for you. Is that okay? Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Like I think that one message could help a lot.
Yeah, we've had similar situations too. And as an entrepreneur, you this is the stuff that you learn, and there's no other way for someone to teach it to you besides just experiencing it. So we've had similar situations. Like, now we try to get in writing, even if it's just in an email. Like, can we get the go ahead on this project? Yes, go ahead. And I will try to clarify. Like, do you want us to just track our time, or do you want a quote up front? If they're in a rush, they'll just say go ahead, and they'll just trust us. But
sure. and hope you don't abuse them. We're logging 20 hours. It took us 3. Like, we're playing ping pong for a while. So
and talk about pricing. Like some clients, you get familiar with them enough that maybe they'll be okay with this, maybe they won't, and you just kind of feel that out. And being an entrepreneur, you kind of this is something you learn as well too.
Sure.
Pricing is not easy for anyone, but we have some clients who I know that they would rather me give them a quote up front, even if it's a small project, because they don't want to get burned. And even though like we're not in the business of trying to deceive anyone, they're being protective of their own company. So we understand that, and if I know that with the client, then we'll give them a quote up front. But others who are just like, yeah, we don't care, just do the project. We need that more than we need to bicker back and forth of pricing.
Sure, yeah, pricing is always a slippery slope for a lot of people, and especially in the creative industry, a lot of people aren't salespeople, but naturally. I'm kind of the one weirdo that's like, I like business and stuff, where I'm in the creative space, where most people I talk to that do this are like, I just want to hire someone to do it because I don't want to, worry about that stuff. Were you kind of privy to the business side of it, or when you were with your other roles before you left, or is this something you had to kind of learn on the fly?
I definitely had to learn it on the fly. I think it was, for most people, like you said, like it's not interesting to them. I didn't get into the design career field so that I can be managing projects and doing sales. However, I will say like I've actually learned to love it. And now like for me, part of the chase of getting a new client is the exhilarating part of it. So for me, it's just naturally working out that even though, like I said at the beginning of this, of recording here, that my goal in college was to be designing logos and packaging every day. Now it's to be designing less and less things every day.
Sure.
And just not doing that, because like creativity it burns you out really quickly as well too. So I've learned that like if I can pick and choose when I want to be creative, that usually means a better mindset for me too. But learning the business side of things has just been interesting, and it's new. Like I never took entrepreneur classes in college or anything like that. So it's just been all learning from experience. And I mean, social media and Google and YouTube make things easier to learn quicker. But it's been enjoyable for me, I suppose, to learn those.
Well, and you mentioned that you guys do other stuff besides just the packaging. You mentioned like sometimes brand photography, a Shopify website design. So it sounds like there's like enough in your product mix that you can kind of keep it fun and keep it light. It's not like logo, like just you're just like what's the Grinch thing where he's like jury duty. It's like you're not doing that.
For sure, exactly. So also too, like with the people that I've hired, like they're designers, so I know like I know what their life's like, what their day-to-day is going to be like. I know, like I've experienced that already. So I know so then as an employer and leader, I'm trying to not burn them out. I'm trying to give them opportunities to like take a break mentally. That's where like the unlimited PTO thing kind of comes in. This is just kind of like us trying this out. Like I can always just stop and say like, all right, we're going to limit this to 2 or 3, whatever weeks. But
somebody just on a sabbatical for 3 months. It's like, okay, you have some work stacking up.
And you know what? Hey, like my guide is, as long as you're getting your work done, I don't care. Go ahead, go take 6 months, but as long as your work is getting done, which means like those two things are kind of, I don't know if it's an oxymoron, what it is, but like that is you're not taking a sabbatical if you're actually working. So,
sure.
But we do have like the guy that's working for us full time. Him and his wife have talked about going to just like live in Europe for like 3 or 4 months, just going to different places for like a month at a time.
Sure.
And like, yeah, cool. As long as you're working.
You might have to get on a Zoom call at 3 a.m, their local time, but
well, I'll still set local time meetings for me. Like it's your job. You chose to go over there, so you can get up at 3 a.m, maybe. But like we'll work through all that stuff and when it happens.
Sure.
I forget where we were going.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Kind of shifting gears here. You'd mentioned doing some work with like Black and Bold and some of these bigger types of companies now that are kind of blowing up. Talk to me a little bit about that relationship specifically, because I think people that are listening to this are probably aware of who they are, and I'm sure they're curious of how you got connected with them.
Yeah, so they got connected to us they found us on, there's a website that prints packaging, and they saw our name on this website, and they saw that we were also an Iowa company. So that was our initial introduction, but this was back when they were like 6 months into the company, and it was still just the 2 founders roasting beans out of their garage.
Sounds like a health code violation.
It might have been. Maybe everyone shut your ears.
Everyone's got it. All my coffee tastes like oil from like a car or engine oil. This is weird.
Which is honestly, though, it's a common story for a lot of coffee roasters. But anyways, get back to the Black and Bold story. So when we met with them, they had told us that like their aspirations were to get into major retail like Target and Whole Foods as quickly as they could. And me being someone who's worked with other people who have told me the same thing, I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. We're going to do our best to get you there. But unless you have thousands of dollars, it's not going to happen, right? Lo and behold, one of the founders had previously worked at Target corporate, I think in the purchasing division. So like he at least understood what the process was to get into these stores and what was kind of needed.
Yeah.
However, their original branding was like a logo that they did on their own, and their packaging was a plain black bag with a label that they did in Canva or something. And you could just tell it wasn't ready for major retail. Like they were getting similar feedback from like they had pitched the products already to Target and Whole Foods, and I think a few others as well too. And they got similar feedback. It's like, hey, like we love your guys' business model. They have a 5% give back initiative. We love you guys. The product itself is good. Everything else is good, but
it just looks like shit.
Exactly. In a roundabout way, they probably told them like, hey, like you guys, it just doesn't seem like you're ready for Target shelves. And like when Target is telling you that your stuff isn't ready for the shelves, they can do that. Hy-Vee, like they're a little bit smaller, and you get to these smaller mom and pop like markets, whatever. They'll take whatever the packaging looks like and just kind of take your chances. Target can tell you, no, man, you're not getting. You got to look a certain way to get here.
Sure.
Even if everything else is good.
Again, their story aligns well with like Target corporates like ethos. They're really pushing like certain social issues, certain like audience segmentations that fits really, really well with who they're looking for. So
yeah, and Black and Bold is a Black-owned business, of course. So they're I kind of helped them get themselves into Target, and I'm not trying to belittle their business model. Like maybe it was certainly an aspect, but their business was going to succeed either way.
Sure. It sounds like they were really focused on getting where they wanted to go.
And they knew, and they had a plan. So anyways, when we met with them, I'd like to talk about the strategy a little bit behind theirs too. So
sure.
When we'd handled their branding, knowing that was their goal, our strategy was to make them not look like a small brand. There's hundreds and thousands of small craft coffee brands out there, and none of them make it onto retail shelves for reasons because coffee is essentially a commodity. Like there's no way it's very hard to differentiate your product, not alone, let alone your brand, but your product itself. So our way of doing that was making them look like they were an established brand already and not looking like a small craft brand. So not having lots of crazy graphics on it, not having this small look. Like we wanted them to look like they were a large brand. So we went with a very minimal look. We went with a very clean look. There's some personalities aspects to it that's on the side of their bag, on their packaging, but everything else around the brand is very minimalist. It's all, straightforward black and white with gold accents. They had a black and white color scheme before, which makes sense. The name is Black and Bold. We loved that. We wanted to keep that, but adding these gold aspects to it really just kind of adds some flair, I suppose, but without needing to be flashy, I suppose. We also took advantage, like we knew like if they actually did get on major retail shelves, that they were going to be competing against Caribou, Starbucks, these other, Dunkin', these other large national brands, that they were only going to get probably a few slots. Like on the shelf, those larger brands probably get about 30 slots. Black and Bold was likely going to get 8 to maybe 12. So we took advantage of an optical illusion that we in the industry know as the ribbon effect or the billboard effect. So your packaging, you probably see this more in the snack aisle where like the boxes, if they're side by side, the design kind of runs one into the next. So an example I like to give is like Ritz they still do a really good job of this, but if you imagine the Ritz box is bright red, they usually have just a big circle cracker right in the middle of the packaging. For a time period, they actually split that cracker in half and put it on either side of the package so that with the two boxes lined up next to each other would create the two halves of the cracker would make a full cracker. Now, if you line up 10 or 11 of those boxes in a row, it just looks like one long billboard showing crackers. So we took advantage of the same thing with Black and Bold's packaging. So you have basically a strip of gold along the bottom and a big portion of black on the top. And when you get a bunch of those side by side, it makes for a big block area of black and gold running running side by side with each other, and that makes it look like it visually takes up more space than it actually does. So, but anyway, so they've passed the strategy now. So these guys they've grown a bit. They got connected with the NBA. So we worked on some NBA like Eastern Conference, Western Conference themed packaging. So that was awesome. So that was, I forget which year it was, like 2021, I think. So they kind of lined up the launch of that product with the NBA Finals that summer and launch everything. And then since then we got to work on a few like NBA themed bags. They also had collaborations with Ben & Jerry's, and then most recently with Marvel Studios in the Black Panther 2 movie. So we got to work on packaging for that too. And happy to talk about like strategy or like how those situations work as well too, if you want to. But
well, if they, I mean, obviously there's Black and Bold, their own company, but when they start licensing and doing these brand deals with other, partners, the NBA or Marvel or whoever, I'm assuming that you had to kind of plug into what assuming Marvel's brand standards is a lot thicker than a small coffee shop that is local or something. Like, how did that relationship go? Because I'm assuming they kind of dictated to you, like, hey, here's the stipulations you have to stay within, and we're going to veto this crap if it doesn't fit to what our standard is. Because if we're going to put Marvel's logo on this product, it has to look awesome.
Yeah, I will first say, and the NBA was a little more relaxed than Marvel is. Marvel is definitely what you were just explaining there. So I'll talk about like what that process was like, and then maybe come back to like how we approached strategically that collaboration.
Sure.
So working with those large brands, as you mentioned, they have these brand standards that are very particular. They also are very protective of their digital assets. So interestingly enough, Marvel's has their like server, their file server is called Asgard. It's a so nice. I'm not a superhero guy, so like that really doesn't mean anything to me. But someone had explained to me that it was like there's some meaning behind that name. But so I thought that's interesting. So their file system, and like you have to get you have to request obviously your login for it. They know exactly who has been in their file system and when. And if you want to download any files from there, it comes with a watermark specifically with your name on it. So that if you want to share this before it's supposed to be shared, they know exactly who shared it because the watermark is right there. And it's like a repeating watermark, so it's not easy to get rid of.
Sure. So if you were to accidentally leak a new design, it's literally got your name printed on it. That's smart.
Exactly. So, and there's lots of other things like that too. The process, like so when we're working with these larger brands in a collaboration, of course, we're meeting with their team. We asked if we can get a sneak peek of the new movie before everyone else. And they're like, no, we can't do that. So I was expecting, so like the hard part was, at least in this situation, is we're working with character assets from a movie that we've not seen and characters that we don't know if they're good or evil. So, when we're trying to put these characters on the packaging, like we were being selective of the characters that we already knew from the previous movie. And I imagine like it's different when you work with the NBA, you're not working with movies and stuff. But, we met with their team, tried to understand what was the Marvel's team's like goals to get out of this, and what are the limitations we have to work within. So like we read through their brand standards guides. We'd understand like where and when you can use the Marvel logo, the Black Panther 2 sort of logo for the movie itself, like how much spacing do you have to allow around that? What colors can we use? They provided background like patterns and stuff for us to use, but like how much can we actually change this to match the Black and Bold brand, because we want to fit the Black and Bold brand into this too. That's kind of the whole point of the collaboration. So how do those two things work together is not easy. But then understanding like we had certain timelines we had to hit for checkpoints within the process. We know the movie comes out this certain time period, which means we needed to have products launched by this time. So unlike a lot of our other clients where it's like, just kind of, not willy-nilly get to it when you get to it, but like there's no specific date for launching stuff. This was like, all these collaborations have actual timelines that we have to hit for all of them, which means getting everyone on the same page beforehand and understanding what direction we're going to go. And then it's just a matter of obviously doing the creative work and getting ideas approved by the Black and Bold team and then by the Marvel team after that. So there's just so many layers of approvals, but it's fun and interesting, but not easy.
Well, and what was that feeling like when you went into like a Target and you see their whole section, like here in Des Moines, or if you're traveling or something, like what's that feeling like seeing your designs on a national stage with these huge co-collaboration brands?
Yeah. So the first times that I had that moment of like, holy cow, I designed this thing that is being seen by millions of people now. 2 times really. The first time was when Black and Bold just started to ramp up, like just started to get popularity. Kelly Rowland, are you familiar with who she is? Mm-hmm. So she is part of what Kelly Rowland was with. Is it Destiny's Child, the Beyonce?
Oh, yep. Yeah. The trio, the 3 singers.
Yep. So Kelly Rowland put out an Instagram video that was like showing off this Black and Bold bag, like that she's using their product basically. And I'm like, holy cow, that is a celebrity holding a bag that I designed. That is so freaking cool. The next moment, which was probably even bigger, and I had no idea was coming also, was watching the Super Bowl. Would have been 2 or 3 years ago now. And Target has a commercial in the Super Bowl, and it was featuring like small businesses. And in the background there is a Black and Bold bag on the shelf in this kitchen. And I'm like, holy cow, that is Target. This is a Super Bowl ad, and my design is on this bag right here. So that was like probably one of the coolest moments ever for me as a designer to see something like, yeah, it's not like I will say like the design is not like some masterpiece graphic artist sort of thing. Like I think we've won a couple awards for it, but it's not like we're not getting national recognition for the design of it. It's just me personally, as it's so cool to see work that we do go from a screen to being printed and physical and being on a shelf somewhere, and then it gets seen by millions of people on the Super Bowl ad, which was cool. So I forget what else you wanted me to follow up with that, but it was definitely like unique and just, I suppose, interesting.
Sure. That's like just a really cool, like, oh, I need to like pinch myself. This is like just a sweet experience to like see that. I think that's awesome. Yeah. I've had that where I shot a TV show 2 years ago that was on like Amazon Prime and Hulu and or Roku, I should say. And when you tune in, I'm like, holy crap, I shot that. Like, again, not like so yeah, but it's like a different style of what I would typically do. But I'm like, this is sweet. Like, it's on TV. You know, that's kind of a fun thing to kind of have there.
Yeah. I know it's probably also, and you probably get this too, of like this. That's kind of why we do what we do. Yeah, we want to get paid and we want to make lots of money. Everyone does, but like, I chose this field because I like to see things that I can create, things that can come from my mind and become physical, and then I can see it kind of out in the wild per se. And I imagine like you probably get similar sorts of feelings with doing video too.
Sure. Well, a lot of people, strangers, will say like, "Oh, what work have I seen of yours, or what clients have you worked with?" And I'll start kind of name dropping some people, and like, oh, seriously? Like, oh, cool. And it's like kind of just add some credibility there to be like, this is legit. Because what kind of happy dance did you do when you got off the call with Marvel and Black and Bold and you realized you're doing that collaboration? Like, I'm assuming you guys probably had a freaking champagne party or something.
We did, yeah. So when I remember when our client, so the one of the founders of Black and Bold, like called me and said, "Hey, I have a project for you."
And you're like, "Get out of here."
He's like, "You ever heard of Marvel?" I'm like, "What? Like, no way. This is the coolest thing. Like, I'm not even a superhero guy, but I understand the significance of this. Like, this is awesome. Let's like, I'm excited." Like, he's like, "But you can't tell anyone." Like, okay. Oh, well, shoot, man. How do I do this? Like, my whole family, I want to tell them. I want to, like, whatever. That was really hard to not, like, we had to sign an NDA, which I understand too. But it was so cool just to have, like, to be able to share that with people, or like as soon as the movie does come out, or like things hit the shelves, I'm like, "Hey, I knew about this for like 6 months. I couldn't tell you about it."
Sure.
But
got the inside scoop.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's nice too, because there's times that I've had to sign NDAs when I'm doing video shoots and stuff, and it's just cool to see it out in the world, or if they're pushing like a really hard like digital ad campaign with the asset that I made. It's like, holy crap, like 100,000 people have seen this ad because I can see it right there on the screen. Like, that's just kind of a wild thing to kind of, like you said, millions of people have seen it or whatever. It's just kind of a, man, I should have like taken one more pass on a revision just to make sure I got everything perfectly right, you know?
Yeah. And I will say, like, going back now, like, so we've done a lot of packaging and a lot of other projects with Black and Bold too, that it almost makes me kick myself for not wishing that I had not put more work into the original branding for Black and Bold, but like, hey, like if maybe we had to like spend more time on this, or maybe I had pushed back on them harder on some revisions that they wanted to do, maybe maybe we could have even been bigger with their branding or something. But it's all learning experience. That was still early on in my company. I was still pretty young too, and obviously, like you said, I'm not old, but I was younger, and like there's just a lot of learning too of like, well, where I'm going to approach now. I'm going to approach every single client as though a year from now they could be huge, like Black and Bold was, because they went quickly for Black and Bold. It was like over the span of I think a year that they really grew to the status that they're in now. So just mentally, like, how do I approach new clients? Basically.
Well, I know in the CPG space, for people that aren't familiar too, like you'll go to a purchasing person and they'll almost always do a test. They'll do like 5 stores if it's a huge company, or 1 store or something. So really you have to knock it out of the park at every stage. And I feel like that's really where packaging stands out, because I've even been in Target and I've seen the Black and Bold section and it's right next to Starbucks. It's right next to Caribou. Yeah. And if I don't realize that they are a local brand, the significance of that might actually trigger me to buy that. Because I had that happen recently. We were in Target and we were going to get some cold brew for the house just to have. And I was in that same shopping experience. I'm like, oh, I could buy the local guys that I know of. I could buy Starbucks or Caribou that I know the taste, and it's brand equity, and I know them and can trust them more. But I'm like, no, I'm going to go with the local one because it's a cool story. I connect with that. It's more than just a cup of coffee. So
yeah. And we also have to like educate our clients too. Like even if they are a startup, like we have to kind of tell them like, look, Black and Bold was a startup at 1.2. All these few other brands of ours that have made it a little bit bigger. No one has made it quite to that level yet of Black and Bold of our clientele, but a lot of them have seen good success so far. Is that you still have to be prepared for it mentally. Like it could happen, and sometimes if you're a unicorn, what we call in the industry, like timing is right, your product is right, that you just kind of overnight become a sensation. You have to be mentally prepared for that. So we have to approach your branding like that too. So like I know you want to compare your product currently to every other small brand out there, but we need to also look at how you compare to these larger brands because you may be on the shelf next to them.
Sure.
So
that's great. And as you're kind of building that team out, how did that feel to bring, like, because I'm assuming you collaborated with all your other crew to put some of these things together. If there were people involved in it that weren't you, how did that feel to kind of share that, where it's like, it wasn't just like me, I did this, but like our group did this? Because I think that's something I'm looking at as I'm hiring my first employee, of like, I want to hire someone that's like a better editor than me, someone that has new, unique styles of shooting that I don't, that can bring it to the table, that elevates our value, our capacity to do good work. How is that for you, having to maybe clap a little bit more than actually design in some of these situations?
Like I said earlier, it's kind of along the same lines of like learning the business side of things and stepping away from designing. I have come to appreciate what other people can do as well too. And designers and creatives of all kinds, you probably get this too, of like what's the like imposter syndrome. Like you see what someone else is doing, you're like, oh man, that's good. Why can't I do it? Or like, why did that client choose them and not me? Or like, there's a lot of jealousy in our industry, and I'll admit that I get it. I've gotten it plenty of times as well too. I see local designers, even ones I'm like good friends with, and I appreciate their work. Like it's really good work. I'm like, man, wish I had thought of something like that or whatever. But when you hire someone and you go into it with that sort of goal of finding someone who's either like you or better. But what is their skill set that's different, and what can they bring to the team that not only is, or rather than copycatting yourself, or rather than cloning yourself, you can find someone who can actually add to the team. So we're in that situation now, and I think coming back to your point of like doing the clapping rather than the designing, it's almost like. So you have kids now.
I do.
And I have kids as well too. Seeing your kids, I have 2 sons. So seeing your sons throw a baseball for the first time, taking their first steps. Like my creative team they're not taking their first steps, of course, but seeing them succeed has also started to make me like happy. So whether it's seeing them succeed on an individual level or as part of our team, like seeing Avidity start to grow because of the work that someone else is doing, shows like that what I'm doing is the right thing. And I'm getting them vested in our company and what our overall goals are. And like yes, I had the vision of the company, like what I want to see the company in the next 5 to 10 years. But they're understanding that, and they feel like they're part of that too. So I think it makes us more like a family, but also like just being on the same page and being proud of work that they're doing. So hopefully that kind of answers your question.
Yeah,
I feel
that's
like
great.
I'm getting really sentimental
No,
now.
you're fine. You're fine. I think it just shows growth though, because I'll talk to some creatives and they can't get past the fact that it's not just their name on the credits. You know, like they just want to have it all to themselves. But they always say, like, if you want to go far, go with a team. Like if you want to just go deep, go by yourself. Like those types of things. I don't know what the actual saying is. It's early. I forget.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
But I think a bigger question I had for you too is.
Sorry, I think.
No, you got it.
Sorry, I think it was. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Love that. Yeah. Now I need to do that on a bumper sticker or something.
I'm gonna go print it out on a t-shirt.
Sure. Through this whole journey for you, I would love to hear if you can think in your business journey, what was like the hardest part, or if there's a moment where you were like, I don't know if I'm cut out to do this, or if there's like money's running out and you're like, oh crap, I can't even make payroll this week. Like, have there been any of these moments in your journey? Because we've talked about all the highs, but we haven't really touched on much of the lows. What's been some of these low points that you can remember in your journey?
So I have 2 of them. I'll come back to the second one here in a bit. That's not necessarily related to like a low point for me personally. But so the first one, after hiring a full-time employee, because there's a lot that hits you. And it's just like, it's overwhelming as a business owner. And to be honest, like I wish that our the government side of things would like figure it out and make it simpler and not so hard on small business owners. That like when payroll starts to come out, it's different than paying a contractor, because now it's not only like, all right, I paid this person one time and now they got to do work for me and then I got to pay them again. No, this is coming out indefinitely until that person, you know, and hopefully you don't ever have to fire them, but like seeing that money come out, it's like, oh shoot, like we get paid from a client and we get whatever big check comes in, like awesome, great, we're doing good. 2 days later, salary comes out. You're like, well, shoot, what the heck happened? You know, and then you start like, you second guess yourself, and it's just a mental game. There's been a few times where like I've looked at my bank account like right before bed, and that was the biggest mistake ever. Because like, man, it feels like we're like, are we not going in the right direction here? Like, what's going on? Then I couldn't sleep that night, and then eventually, like for me, like because things were actually in a more positive direction than I thought that those nights where I was just kind of sleepless, it was easier to like explain to myself, look, we're doing fine. The money maybe is not showing up in the account, but that's because we haven't finished these projects. We finish these projects, then all of it's going to come on top. And in the nature of our business, like there's a lot of it's like roller coaster. I forget what the term is, but like it's you're getting a lot of money, but then maybe there's drought months, and it's like it's not really like smooth.
Sure.
So it's
there's
just
peaks and valleys.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that. So there was, I mean, those couple like sleepless nights, like I definitely had conversations with my wife. I'm like, am I making the right decision? Did I do this too soon? Like, are we actually at a point where we're ready to hire someone else? Like now, not only am I responsible for like bringing in my income, but now it's another person's income and, you know, being supportive of their family. That's the difficult part, because it just feels like there's a lot more weight on your shoulders for those decisions that you make.
I totally get it. That's been my biggest reservation. Everyone I talk to is like, just hire someone. I'm like, you don't get it, because the first 3 months of the year for me is usually my slower months.
Yeah.
And it gets slim. But for me, if I'm the only person, no one else knows that besides me. Where if you start hiring people, like you said, we got to have something coming in, because one, they got to do something, and two, we have to make money so they can keep getting paid. So I think a lot of it's just the pride on that side, but also like the responsibility, like taking complete responsibility for this person's financial picture, you know, like they need to be paid. And so do I, frankly. So like, let's get the shit going. You know?
Exactly. And now, and so what I've started to realize now too, and I'm getting better about this, but hiring people is difficult, but if it's allowing you to do what you need to do with the business, to grow the business or get more money coming in. Like part of what was holding me back from getting, and still to an extent, holding me back from us getting more clients or getting bigger clients, is that my time wasn't devoted to finding those clients or connecting with those clients. It's been doing the work so we can get the project finished for a client that we already have. If I can take my time away from that, then I can focus on the things I need to focus on. If we're still busy and we're still profitable, then it makes sense. Let's start hiring people for other positions. Like, how can we make this faster? Is it hiring another designer? Is it hiring someone to manage the projects? Because that's what I'm doing a lot of. If I can hire someone to manage projects, then I can take my time away from that and they can focus on it. So some of those things just kind of get easier, like as you go and you start to learn like why or like what you need to focus on. But coming back to the second thing, it was a negative thing for like client relationships, but it's also a positive and like growth moment for me was when I fired my first client.
Your first client?
Yes.
Okay.
Fired my first client. It was about a year ago. And as you're growing, like you kind of, you take everything that comes to you. And eventually you kind of get to a point of like, is this client or is this relationship worth it? Are we profitable? But like, is this enjoyable? What's going on? We've had a few moments like this, but there's only been, I think, 2 times where I've actually had to like full on tell a client, like, we're not working with you anymore. Even if they come to us with whatever project, we're not going to work with them. So having this client, basically, you've probably heard the like rule of thumb. Like there's like 3 things you can, at least in the graphic design world, you can either have projects be fast, cheap, or good. You can pick 2 of the 3.
Can't have all 3.
You can't have all 3.
Yep.
They were trying to get all 3 and consistently. Like it's one thing if we have a client who's like, all right, we need this done quick because it's we're trying to get this product launched into Walmart here really soon, and we have to have it by this time. And
there's a cost with that, though.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, okay, well, that means we have to rush. Like, okay, but they always want it good, of course. Every client wants their stuff to look good. And then they're like, well, we don't have like, we're still like on a short budget. But like once we get into Walmart, then like money's gonna start coming in, or it's not gonna be a big deal. Like we don't have to do this anymore. Like, well, this is about the 6th or 7th time that it happened to me with this one client. And he was pretty upset when I told him like we're not gonna do this. Like we're done. Like you've tried to do this many, many times. We've gone along with it. We try to give some slack to clients. So like we understand that when they're small, budget's low, your expectations that you're trying to get into these major retailers, like, okay, well, once it happens, then we're gonna have money. Well, okay, maybe, I don't know that. And it was just, I think it was, like I said, it was a growth moment for me to realize that this relationship wasn't benefiting us. And whether it was or not benefiting them, it didn't, we had to look out for ourselves. I liked the guy personally, but having to tell them like, you can't keep doing this to us, and we're not gonna settle for that. So we had other clients who were respectful of us, do pay on time and pay more than what we're charging this company, and then the work was more enjoyable, and it actually came out better too because we also had like tons and tons of revisions with this client. It was never anything that's ever been on our portfolio and never probably would be. So
sure. No, and I've had a similar situation in my case where I had a client where I knew the second we started working together, because she would just like over communicating over the littlest thing. She kept wanting to call me all the time. I'm like, stop calling me. Like, well, I got this idea. And I'm like, yeah, send me an email. Like, I will get back to you. It's like 10 o'clock at night. Like, I'm not answering the phone.
Yeah.
And then she texts me, why didn't you answer? Why didn't you? I'm like, oh my God, I'm not customer support at a freaking cell phone company,
So tell me, like, what sort of red flags do you find? Like when you're talking with either a potential client or you have current clients, like I can get into them here too.
Sure.
But I want to hear from you. Like what's some red flags that you come across?
I would say for me, there are certain industries that I just avoid altogether because they all have the same red flags. One of them is like music videos. I just have never shot them and never will, because it's always startup artists that have no money, that saw some $100,000 budget music video on MTV and they're like, I want that. What's your budget? Like $20. I'm like, yeah, that's
sure.
what I thought.
But you're gonna get so much recognition afterwards,
right? Dude, yeah. They'll pay an exposure. I'll call the gas company, like, hey, can I pay you guys with exposure this month?
Yeah.
It'll be great.
Yeah.
So there's certain industries that I avoid, not to knock music artists, but that's typically what happens.
Sure.
And larger established record companies would never come to someone like me. They would go to like an actual production company and pay the money for it. So avoiding all industries together. And then I usually screen them in the beginning. I have like a form that auto-populates when someone fills out a form on my website asking all the questions I would ask in a discovery call to even avoid me wasting my time with a discovery call with someone that just has no clue. And then also if I send out that discovery call email to set the meeting up and they don't respond within like a day or two, I know I'm not going to work with them, because if they're not responsive to meeting me for the first time, what are they going to do when I'm trying to run down an invoice? The other thing is I've had a couple of clients fight me on, I do half up front, half at delivery. All the people that have fought me on doing that would have never paid at the end. Like if they're not willing to pay the first half up front, they weren't going to pay the full part when it was done. So at least I like saved my skin there.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of times where I've had that happen as well. But yeah, just usually when people are talking about, like you said, they're trying to like paint this picture of all the future work and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yes, if I could buy into your vision, I get that. But also like, I can kind of sense if someone's a doer or a dreamer. So that kind of helps understand like, okay, they just think this is going to be good. Because I've shot a couple things recently for a nonprofit that I have like my nonprofit rate. But they're saying, oh, like we'll have a lot of travel work for you if you do this first one for an inexpensive, like we'll be in Boston, we'll be in Washington State, we'll be in Texas. I'm like, you guys were struggling to pay this and I'm local now. You're going to pay my flight and a crew to come with? I'm like, there's no way. Like it just, if you're realistic with people, I think it helps to know. But then you do it enough, you see the trends of like, oh, this person's not a good person for me.
Yeah. Yeah. For us, it's, I mean, if we get potential clients who will email me and the first things that they're saying is, I already have a logo, I just need packaging design. And then how much? Okay, well, there's a lot more that I need to know about you. So those are usually an immediate red flag. And sometimes I don't even bother responding to those because I know if they came to us and the first thing I say is, I already have a logo, but I need you to design the packaging. Either they did the logo themselves or they went through like Fiverr and it's kind of cheap. Because always, if I do get on a call with one of those clients, the first thing I ask is like, well, you had someone design your logo. Why are you not having them design your packaging? I don't like it. I don't bother with like just trying to take every project that comes to us. But I want to know why. Is there a reason that you're not working with that designer? And that's when it always comes out like that they did it themselves or they went to Fiverr. Or I will have situations where that person will say, well, I was working with them on this, but it just wasn't working out. They were whatever. They'll list 3 or 4 reasons of why they didn't enjoy working with that designer. Like, okay, it might be you. Like it's not. It's not. It may not.
They wouldn't answer my call at 3 a.m. They wouldn't give me an extension on my invoice. It's like, oh my god.
They wanted me to pay them. It was weird. We require people to pay us at least some form up or some percentage up front too. The same reasons you like, we need them to have skin in the game, and we know
just for cash flow too. You know, if a project's like, I just wrapped up a project with a government agency, 16-month project, and I'm like, I need half up front. And they're like, well, that's the rest of our marketing budget for this calendar year. I'm like, well, that sucks, but like,
you should have planned better.
Like we're doing 6 shoots. Like I have to pay contractors and editors and travel costs and hotels. I'm like, I'm not just going to like take this on myself, because if you guys decide you don't want to pay this at the end, I'm like out tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think that's part of it too.
Yeah. And like you, like we've had clients who will text me at like all hours of the night. One of them was the client that I fired too. And I'm like, dude, like I have an email for a reason. This is everything that comes through my text. Like if you want to get my attention and we need to set up a call, sure, I don't mind. Especially if you're texting me during normal business hours or it's a reasonable time at night. Like some clients we have who are starting a project on the side of their full-time job, well, I'll meet with them at night because I'm flexible.
Sure.
But yeah, if you're texting me or calling me at 10 o'clock at night or 5 a.m, no, that's not how we're going to operate. I am not at your beck and call. None of us in our company are, and I'm not going to expect any of us to respond at that time.
Well, there was one of my clients, as we're talking through this, the one that I didn't fire her, but I will never work with her again. Like I just wanted to get it done and be over. I had like said, here's the video to review on like a Wednesday. And then Friday at like 4 o'clock, she's calling me like, hey, I need this and that. And I had places to be that night. I had family stuff going on that night. And I'm like, I can't do it. And she was like screaming at me and all this stuff. And like, I ended up like being here till 8 o'clock at night to do all this stuff for her that were outside of scope. And I'm just like sitting here this whole time, like, this isn't fun. Like if this is all how my clients were, I'd never make it. Like you just got to get those people out of your life, I think. But also like setting the expectation. Cause I tell clients right away, I'm like, Best way to get a hold of me is email. The only time you should ever text or call me is on the day of a shoot. If you can't find me, if I'm late, or I need your information for that. If I'm like trying to find you at a shoot and I can't find you, that's the only time I'll ever text or call you.
Yeah.
But I'll have people like email me and then text me about it or call me. And then I've had clients that I try really hard to be like, hey, don't text me because I will not get back to you because if it's 8 o'clock, I'll read it and then be like, cool. And then I'll forget to do it because it's 12 hours later when I get in the office to look at it. So it's just one of those like stupid things that people just prefer to text. So they use their preferred method with you instead of just like use email. Because you said you use ClickUp. Is that the only way you coordinate with your client is through that software, or is that just your internal software?
We just do it internally. We don't even use that. I know that there's capabilities of it, or there's features with ClickUp that you can like have clients prove things. We still handle like that, like the client stuff through email. Not because like some of our clients don't want to adapt to something new like that and they're just used to email. So we're not going to really bother. Other times, like I've heard of, we haven't had this with any of our clients or with anyone on our team, but I've heard horror stories of people who will like make negative comments about clients in their project management system, and a client sees it and they're not a client anymore for a reason. We don't want anything like that to happen. We've been pretty positive speaking with almost all of our clients anyways, and we've been grateful for that. But I would like to hope that nothing like that would ever happen. But the larger your company gets and more people involved, there's going to be things like that can happen. Sure.
People don't realize like everything on your team Slack, your email, the admin can see everything. Like you're like, it's like writing love letters and then like leaving the letters on your desk at school. Like people can find that stuff really easily. You know?
Exactly. Yep. So we'll just try to avoid that as much as we can. I forget where we wanted to go with that really, but with project management, I mean, ClickUp. That's what I think we've covered what you were asking really with that. But
no, I think it just again kind of tying these horror stories. It's not. I think the thing I'm trying to get across here is that people will hear, oh, you've worked with Marvel and NBA and all these cool companies. It's like it's not just sunshine and rainbows. That's awesome that you're doing those things, but there are things that happen as you go. And everyone I talk to that starts hiring a team has had this payroll thing where they got to go to like a local bank and be like, hey, can I just in case have like a line of credit if I do run into like cash flow issues where I just need like money to hold me over for 3 days until payroll hits and then I can deposit it back. Stuff like that. I think people don't realize you have to get creative with how you have funding or keep a big chunk of liquid cash in the savings account that is for those moments where it's like, shit, I need to transfer some money over.
Yeah, for sure. And we've been grateful to not have like a lot of the situations, but I think it's due to the fact that I'm such a low risk taker that like I make sure I have all my ducks in a row before I make whatever this big decision is going to be. And then we've been lucky so far that like everything has worked out after that decision, that either I've realized like there's been decisions that have been wrong, but like being able to either correct them or the business has still gone forward in a way that's been positive, and like we've actually seen growth from those decisions. So
sure. Well, and as we're kind of tying it all together here, where's the vision for the future for your company now? Like you got a small and nimble team here now. Like what's kind of the vision? Are you happy where you're at? Do you want to keep scaling it? Like what's that look like for you?
I've been back and forth. I think originally my goal was for us to be somewhere around like a 12 to 15 person agency. That just because it feels right. Like I want to have a small team that's still flexible. To me, it seems like smaller teams are more creative because there's a lot less bureaucracy and you can move a lot quicker because there's a lot less people involved. So I think I would still say I might actually even go a little bit smaller and be like an 8 to 10 person agency. But I think, right now we're all remote. I don't know if that will change. I think because I've had people ask me that too of like, do you want to have an office space? I do, because I think creatively, like it's a lot easier for us to all be in one space. But being that like right now, the full-time guy that works for me is in Michigan. When the other two are here local, but until we have 4 or 5 full-time staff here in the Des Moines area, it just doesn't make sense to do that. And I'm okay with us staying remote, and at least until then. And if we end up having a team that's completely remote from all parts of the country, I think I'm fine with us just being a remote company. But I think the vision is still always to focus on CPG. I think we might we're continuing, I guess now we're starting to grow what these different services are that we're doing. So besides just design and then creative strategy, like doing the lifestyle photography, doing content creation, getting into digital marketing, we're starting to become like Shopify experts. So not even just like setting up the account, but like doing some development with it. We'll get more into those things. We're going to get into Amazon here in a bit of like setting up Amazon accounts for our clients. So growing all those things, but it will always be focused around CPG and like what those clients need, and not just like trying to be everything to everyone. It'll be trying to be everything just to one type of client.
Sure.
What we can offer, because we do see right now like the projects that we're missing out on is because we don't offer these things, and those projects are going. The bigger clients are going to the agencies who can do a little more full service. So we'll continue to grow in that way. But I don't ever see us or probably ever want us to be like this big 100, 300 person agency that you see for like, we're never going to work with Coca-Cola because we're not going to have the capacity.
Sure.
And that's okay with me.
Sure. No, I love that. Where can people find you if they want to connect or learn more about you? Yep. Is it like LinkedIn, your website? Like where do you want to send people if they're listening?
Yeah. So if you're a CPG brand and you're looking to actually either do some rebranding, need some creative strategy, just want packaging design, just go to aviditycreative.com. Otherwise, you can find me personally. Well, I would say also look at our Instagram page. So Instagram at Avidity Creative. We do share a lot more on our Instagram page of like work that we're either had just finished or work in progress. So if you're into wanting some inspiration or just want to follow a fun account that just shows what we're doing, then go to Instagram. But you find me personally on LinkedIn. I would say if you're wanting to. I'm always open to talking with other entrepreneurs or especially other designers. I went through the freelance thing for a while. So anyone who's going through freelancing now or is thinking about it, happy to answer those questions for them.
Or somebody wants to join your team maybe in the future.
That too. So we'll be looking hopefully in the next the next 6 to 9 months. We'll probably be adding a couple more people. So follow us for that too. I'm not really sure what those positions are going to be. Either creative positions, maybe a designer, maybe another art director, maybe photographer. Who knows? I'm not really sure yet.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, man. I appreciate you coming in, and I just love hearing your story because it's so similar to mine. Mm-hmm. Just you design things and I make videos. It's like the same thing though.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to see how you built the team out, and it's for myself. I know it's been really beneficial because as I'm doing the same thing, thinking strategically of like who's the right person for that first role and how to do it low risk. Because I'm the same way. I'm like the most risk averse entrepreneur, if you can even call me that. Because every entrepreneur is like innately a risk taker. I'm nope, like we'll just do the little things we can do. So I appreciate you coming on.
Yep. Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun. I could talk like this for hours, so I know I kind of jumble or just kind of talk in circles, but it's been enjoyable to talk with you and fun being on the show.
Awesome, man. Well, if you made it this far in the show, you guys know what to do. Make sure to give the subscription button a big hit if you're on YouTube or Spotify. Hit the 5-star review button as well if you're on iTunes. And check us out on social media. We share clips almost daily of the show from all future, current, and past episodes. So my name is Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and you're listening to Rhymes with Odd. I'm out. Peace. Thank you so much for watching yet another episode of the Rhymes with Odd podcast. We really do appreciate your support. If you could give us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes, that makes a world of difference, guys. Also, if you're tuning in on YouTube or Spotify, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and check us out on social media. Also, if you'd like to inquire more about our services here at Snod Media Group or learn about doing your own podcast for your own business, you can find us at snodmedia.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.